Monday, March 10th, 2025, meeting of the Concord City Council. Would you please join me in standing and pledging allegiance to the flag?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I would like to invite our Deputy City Clerk, Deborah Toot, who is going to be sitting in today and being our clerk. Welcome.
Thank you.
We're not too intimidating, I hope, nor the process.
The other way around.
I know. Madam City Clerk, would you please call the roll?
I will. Councilor Brown. Here. Mayor Champlin.
Present.
Councilor Fennessy.
Present.
Councilor Foote.
Present.
Councilor Grady Sexton.
Here.
Councilor Horn.
Here.
Councilor Keach.
Here.
Councilor Kretovic.
Here.
Councilor Kurtz.
Here.
Councilor McLaughlin. Councilor McNamara.
Here.
Councilor Schlosser.
Here.
Councilor Schultz.
Here.
Councilor Sekou.
Councilor Sekou and Councilor McLaughlin are excused.
Thank you. And Councilor Todd.
All right, Councilor Sekou will be returning. Will be a little late. All right, thank you very much. We have a motion to approve the meeting minutes of our February 10th, 2025 meeting.
Second.
Second. All right, any discussion? Councilor Brown.
Yes, I do have one quick correction. On page 13, the acronym FPAC it says FPAP. It should be FPAC.
I noticed that as well. Thank you. So it should be FPAC, F-P-A-C. All righty. Any other discussion? All those in favor of adopting the minutes as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Thank you very much. In lieu of our agenda overview, I would just like to take a moment to acknowledge the passing of one of our firefighters a few days ago, firefighter C.J. Gerard. I think I speak on behalf of the entire City Council to say that our hearts go out not only to his wife Shannon and their two children, but also to the firefighting community in this city and across the state. It's a fraternity, sorority, closely bound, people who commit themselves to serving our community. And C.J. Gerard was one of our finest, and it's tragic to have lost him at this time and at such an early age. So on behalf of the council, I extend our condolences to his family and to our firefighters and the firefighting community as a whole.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. That brings us to a presentation. May I ask Chief Osgood to come forward?
Good evening, Mr. Manager, Mayor Champlin, members of the City Council. Tonight, on number 21, you have a consent resolution in front of you, and it's to submit an application to restart our Patrol Canine program. Our Patrol Canine program last existed in the year 2005, so it's been about 20 years since we've been able to re-implement this program. So I'm joined today with Deputy Chief Smagula, who in 2005 was a canine handler for the Concord Police Department. You'll see some photographs of him back in that era tonight. And to my left also is Officer Matt LeBlanc, who has handled canines for the United States Marine Corps as well as civilian law enforcement. So we're going to do a short presentation and answer any questions.
Perfect. Thank you again for having us here today. Just like the chief said, we just want to go over a quick overview of restarting the canine program, and we'll do over a little bit of overview. But first purpose is standard of what a dog can do for the city of Concord here: deter crime, locate missing persons, assist with criminal tracks, locate evidence, and stop and find the illegal drugs that are in the city of Concord. Alongside of the criminal aspect of it, we also have the positive impact on the community, reaching out to kids and younger age groups and everyone in the city of showing the capabilities of the dog. Here's the stunning photo of Deputy Chief Spagula back in, I believe this was probably, what year was this, sir?
That was my second dog, so I would say 2004.
Okay. So we haven't had a canine here in the city for about 20 years. I was able to pull some statistics for Deputy Chief Smagula's deployments for his dog. We ended up switching programs, documentation programs for the PD back in 2004-2005 timeframe. So these are very limited, a couple of months worth of data that I was able to pull from. So in that time frame, he had 7 deployments for burglaries or building searches, 9 criminal tracks, 3 missing persons that were in critical condition, and then 2 assist other agencies. And again, that was only for a couple months worth of data due to us switching systems. What we're looking for the city today is the patrol canine, and these are everything that the dog can do for the city here. Again, the criminal tracking, drug detection, searching for missing persons, building search, criminal apprehension, the less lethal use of force option, and the handler protection. If you look at the article to the right, it's off of WMUR. I'm not sure if anybody's familiar with it. In Bedford, 2 officers were speaking with a suspect down there. A struggle ensued where they tried to take him into custody. The suspect was able to get a hold of one of the officers' firearms and discharge the firearm. One of the officers on scene was a canine handler, was able to hit a door popper on his vehicle, which opened the side door, deployed the dog, and he was able to get an apprehension with the dog to help take the person into custody. Again, not using lethal force, they're able to use that non-lethal force aspect. So over the past couple of months, since September, we've been trying to log every time the department has requested a canine from outside agencies. The supervisors have been trying to juggle the call and also logging in this database for us the calls that we've had for canines. We've had approximately 21 calls, and in those there were 7 that included a burglary, robbery, stolen vehicles, narcotics detection, and search warrants. 10 of those calls were for suspects actively fleeing officers, so at that time when we called for the dog, the suspect was actually fleeing on foot or in a vehicle of some sort. We had 4 missing persons that had exigent circumstances, which means whether the person was a juvenile, suicidal, a dementia patient, a walkaway in bad weather that we need to find immediately, or else they could be possibly deceased when they're found later on. And to go off of this is, when we request a canine, we usually use New Hampshire State Police for that. We took the stats the other day. There's approximately 23 dogs that New Hampshire State Police has to offer for the state, but they're coming from everywhere in the state. They may not be here in the Concord area. They may be up in Franconia or Notch or down in Nashua or Portsmouth. One call recently, we had a officer request a canine for a drug sniff on a vehicle. The dog was approximately an hour away, according to State Police dispatch. So having a dog in the city working the road at this time, we'd have a fast response in order to deploy the dog on that drug sniff. The officer ended up letting the vehicle depart due to lack of reasonable suspicion and all that type of stuff, but and time frame. So these are the calls I was able to pull for 2024. I pulled all the calls that were offense reports. We take 2 types of reports for the most part. Is an arrest report, which the person was arrested on scene for. An offense report where the person was not on scene. We pull a report, we document and investigate, and then issue an arrest warrant later if there's probable cause for the arrest. When it comes to missing persons, we always just pull a offense report, and these are 38 of those. Those included juveniles also, that a dog could have been deployed to at least check the area, see if we can locate that person if there's exigent circumstances or anything like that. Burglaries, we had 23 of them. Again, these aren't all first entry and stuff like that, but these are all that are possible dog calls for the city here. Resisting arrest, approximately 130. These also entail actual physical arrest or fighting the arrest, and then actually fleeing. So those are the same charge in the city here for us. So if someone runs or actually fights, it's the same type of charge. So that's why it says approximately 130. But then the robbery aspect, we had 28 of. And the robbery, the person could have used force to exit the store or the department or whatever it may be, or the person fled the scene, and that time we could have deployed a dog to track and either apprehend or locate. Again, the total calls for that were approximately 229 calls. I'll show a quick video here shortly about how having a canine in the city would be a great force multiplier for us. We had a building search just the other night of where we needed to clear a whole entire building, and we had to use a whole entire shift for that. I believe we left 1 or 2 cars available for the entire city. So when we don't have a dog available, we have to pull all the resources in to set a perimeter, get enough officers inside to make it safe while we search. We can't just put one guy and say, go search the entire building. So we end up tying up the whole shift. With the canine, I do believe that we can make this a faster process and a more efficient process when we have that canine on scene. We'll still need to set the perimeter, but we don't need to send as many officers inside the building because you have the dog that will be able to locate and clear, soft clear rooms faster in a more efficient manner. I may have to. And this is just a quick video. If you look to the left and right, there's 2 open doors here. And down the hallway, there's a closed door. So where that dog was just downing on is a closed door. The dog is able to check to the left, say, nope, there's nobody in there, by just using his nose. Looks to the right, be able to smell, bypasses the door to verify where that person is coming from, goes back to the door and says, I'm 100% confident there's someone inside that door. If we look, there's officers are not moving forward, not going down the hallway. We're not putting them in what we call the fatal funnel aspect of it, where they're having to hold each door and stuff like that, and we're having to put multiple officers into rooms, and if that room expands farther in, putting more officers into that room. With this here, officers are able to stay back, have the dog locate, find that person on the door seam, be able to smell that human odor, and from there we can make a different approach to trying to locate that person inside the room or get that person to come out using call-outs or whatever it may be. Having the dog in itself is the barking and stuff like that is a huge deterrent for people to either put up a fight or just to come out and give up at that point. So on to the aspect of paying for this program and getting it up and running. There's a grant out there called the Stanton Foundation Grant. What this does is it gives us a total of $50,800 to start up this program and get it up and running again. It covers everything from the cost of the canine, the cruiser conversion, the cost of school, the cost of the secondary school, the narcotics detection aspect of it, building a kennel at the residence of the handler's house, vet bills, food, and bulletproof vests, which a lot of these are already donated through other organizations on top of this. The grant in itself, we get a lump sum, if approved for it, would be a lump sum of $32,000 initially for the startup of the program. And that again would cover all your cruiser conversion and the dog itself and the schooling. After completion of the school, it's $14,300 that the city would get back to cover the cost of overtime for that officer being gone. And then after completion of the secondary school, which is shorter, it's $4,500 that would be returned. Just a little overview on the actual K-9 Academy itself. It's 13 weeks long. The secondary school, which would be the narcotics detection aspect of it, is 8 weeks long. The course is hosted here in New Hampshire by the Hillsborough Police Department. They have a sergeant over there that runs the course. The certification that the dog has when it leaves that, or the dog team has when it leaves that course, is not through Hillsborough PD. It's not through a local police department or anything like that. It's through a national third-party testing. So what that means is somebody comes from a different state to come verify that these dogs are up to the standard and meet the certain qualifications that are needed to put on the road. With that, going to K-9 school, we also get the capability of getting access to the 28 other dog teams that train inside of that training group. What that entails is you have Pembroke PD, Brentwood, Hooksett PD, New Boston, and Peterborough, all these surrounding agencies that we can use as mutual aid when our handler's not available. Whether that means he's on vacation or what, they can take over when we're not available. Again, if they're not available, then we can obviously revert to another agency far away or whatever it may be, or just our plan from there. But again, you have access to those 28 dog teams, and you train regularly so you know how you all work, and they would be able to train with the department. The benefit to the community, like we've discussed, is the detection of drugs, the quickly finding missing persons, the search and rescue aspect of it for those people that are in critical conditions or suicidal subjects, the apprehension of criminals, and the clearing of large buildings, residences quickly to get our officers back on the road to answer other calls for service when they're available. The community aspect of it, in my previous department, what I was able to do is able to go out there and talk to kids and put the dog out to show basic obedience. Kids love to see a dog bark and jump around and catch a ball and do some cool obedience and stuff like that. I was able to go out to daycare, schools, build and foster that great relationship that a department needs with the community in order to instill the trust in the city here. And again, we have lucky enough to have SROs here that can help us and assist in setting up programs and demos and stuff like that to show the community and the students of the school the capabilities that we have here today. But with that, that's pretty much the quick slideshow we have for you guys today. I'll refer to the chief.
Just thought we would entertain any questions that you might have on the reestablishment of the program.
Councilor Moore.
I might have missed you saying it. Why did you do away with the K-9 program from before?
That's a good question. It was a logistical thing at the time in 2005. I think it was some budgetary issues. I know that Deputy Chief Smagula had been recently promoted to the rank of sergeant, so that rank is not really conducive to be the handler, and it just kind of like, all things considered, there was a decision made to abandon the program.
Councilor Kretovic.
Thank you. Do you have an estimated cost after year one of what that expense would be to continue the program afterwards that wouldn't be funded by grants?
Another very good question. A second source of funding that we will tap into is there's a nonprofit called the Friends of the Concord Police K-9 program, which is a nonprofit. And so they've kind of been defunct a little bit. We plan on getting that restarted. Probably, I'm guessing it's probably less than $10,000, maybe $5,000 annually to cover this program. And this grant will probably last for about 3 years.
Thank you.
Councilor Kurtz.
That was my question. Thank you.
Councilor Fennessy.
Thank you. I think I know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask it anyways. So is it just one officer who ends up handling the dog?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Did you want to explain why?
Usually it's the bond you build with each other. And secondary, a dog can have a different change of behavior. Deputy Chief Smagula's dog could have a totally different response to drug detection than a dog I worked. So in order to learn that specific dog's behavior and get proficient as a dog team, it's one handler, one dog.
If I could, the chief and I have been talking about this, reinstituting this, and along with Steve, at least a half a dozen years, maybe 10 years, when the time came, when dollars were available, we had the right talent, and it would be good for the community. When we discontinued this, it was on the eve of a major recession, and the city council was looking very closely at dollars and how everything would work. But the way they've structured this together, I could not see a better opportunity. If you want to do something, as you know, we were at the forefront of bringing liberty, the first one on this side of the Mississippi. That was us, and I think I have all the confidence in the world in these guys to make this work.
Any other questions?
I'm going to guess it's very safe to say that this is not going to be a comfort dog.
No, sir.
Okay. And then secondly, you referred to the Bedford incident, and that dog likely saved a life. So,
absolutely,
great program. Thank you for your great display, and I appreciate your efforts. Thank you.
Yes, sir. So, in essence, this is on the consent agenda. When you approve the consent agenda, you're giving us authorization to go and try to get the grant. And then if we're successful with the grant, we would come back and ask you to accept the grant and move forward with the program.
Thank you. All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. This brings us to our consent agenda for the evening. I'll note that item 8 was removed from the consent agenda by Councilor McNamara. Item 17 was removed by Councilor Brown.
Move approval?
Moved, seconded?
Second.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilor Kretovic?
Mr. Mayor, I'll be recusing my name from item number 9 since there is an ethics complaint against me.
Fine, thank you. Councilor Brown?
Yes, I am recusing myself from item number 16, 21, and 22, as my husband is a Concord police officer.
Great, thank you very much. Thanks for noting that. Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. The consent agenda the calendar is approved. This moves us to the public hearing section of our meeting. Madam City Clerk, item 25A.
Resolution expanding the boundary of the Pennacook-Boscawen Water Precinct.
Thank you. Mr. City Manager.
Members of the council, we have somebody from the Boscawen Water Precinct who's going, or their attorney's going to present. I guess this is the good-looking guy with the tie. Come on, who I don't know, so.
I'm not alone. My name is Chesnard. I'm an attorney with Cleveland Waters and Bass. We represent the water precinct. There's not a ton to say, but just real quickly to kind of give you an overview.
Could you identify your guest?
Oh, yes, this is Bill Murphy.
Bill Murphy, I'm one of the commissioners.
Thank you. Welcome, Commissioner Murphy.
Just to kind of get started, the petition is to expand the boundaries of the Pennacook-Boscawen Water Precinct. The expansion only involves land in Boscawen. It doesn't involve any land in Concord. So as a result, the boundaries that are already in Concord will remain entirely unchanged. The Town of Boscawen Select Board, they also received our petition, and on February 26th, they voted in favor of it. So we're here. It's not really entirely clear to us that we actually need Concord's approval. Out of an abundance of caution, we're seeking it so we can proceed.
Any questions from the council? All right, seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Comments from you, Mr. City Manager?
No, this is where we've had legal and water both look at this. We're very much in favor of this, and when the time comes, we'll recommend that you approve it.
Thank you. I'll now open the public hearing on item 25A. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak to this? All right, seeing none, I declare the public hearing closed. Madam City Clerk, item 25B.
Resolution appropriating the sum of $43,062.71 as reimbursement of personal costs related to the deployment of fire department personnel to areas impacted by natural disasters and accepting the sum of $43,062.71 in federal emergency management agency funds for this purpose.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager.
Your Honor, members of the council, I recommend you take the money.
Thank you. I'll now open the public hearing on this item. Would anyone in the audience like to testify on item 25B? Seeing none, I declare the public hearing closed. Madam City Clerk, item 25C.
Resolution appropriating the sum of $15,000 in the Community Development Miscellaneous Grants and Donations Project for tree planting on city property and within public rights-of-way under the Sustainable Tree Program, and authorizing a transfer in the sum of $15,000 from the Urban Tree Trust Fund for this purpose.
Thank you. Mr. City Manager.
Members of the council, I recommend you have a 4-page report with all the details in it, but I recommend accepting the $15,000 or approve the $15,000 from the trust fund transfer and allow the committee and the group to move forward with their work.
Thank you. Any questions for the City Manager? Seeing none, I'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to testify on this item, item 25C? Seeing none, I'll declare the public hearing closed. This brings us to public hearing action. Madam City Clerk, item 26.
Resolution expanding the boundary of the Pennacook-Boscawen Water Precinct.
Motion
Second.
moved and seconded. Any discussion? Very well. All those who in favor of approving the motion as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. Thank you very much. Madam City Clerk, item 27.
Resolution appropriating the sum of $43,062.71 as reimbursement of personnel costs related to the deployment of fire department personnel to areas impacted by natural disasters and accepting the sum of $43,062.71 in federal emergency management agency funds for this purpose.
Move you take the money?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Very well. All those who in favor of the motion as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it, the motion passes by the required two-thirds majority. Madam City Clerk, item 28.
Resolution appropriating the sum of $15,000 in the Community Development Miscellaneous Grants and Donations Project for tree planting on city property and within public rights-of-way under the Sustainable Tree Program, and authorizing a transfer in the sum of $15,000 from the Urban Tree Trust Fund for this purpose.
Approval?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor of adopting the motion as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. Motion is adopted. That brings us to the section of our meeting with reports. We have a presentation from the Committee for Concord's Plan to End Homelessness.
If you could just give us a minute,
To
council and I,
interface?
the council, the interface, the council and I will make sure.
Go right ahead.
Don't speak too early. Just needed some remedial help.
All right. As do we all from time to time.
And I refused. I didn't know.
All right, welcome. Would you identify yourself? I know who you are, but.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Manager and members of the City Council. I'm Roseanne Haggerty, Concord resident and Chair of the City's Committee for Concord's Plan to End Homelessness, Steering Committee for Concord's Plan to End Homelessness, and very much appreciate the chance to report in on the committee's work over the last year, and want to begin by thanking you for passing the priority last year to, over the course of 2024 and 2025, put a meaningful dent in homelessness. And I'd just like to maybe make 3 points overall. First, that while homelessness nationally is on the rise, it's not on the rise everywhere. In fact, many communities are making measurable and sustained progress in reducing homelessness. And Concord has adopted a plan that is informed by the practices that actually get outcomes and benefit entire communities. I will say a bit about the process we've gone through in the last year with the help of the New Hampshire Charitable Foundation and the participation of many individuals in the communities. We did a pretty extensive outreach and then met at length with organizations that are directly involved in responding to homelessness. Across 2 sessions, we developed a 5-part plan, and we're in the midst of implementing that. Each of the elements of the plan are supported by work groups who are advancing these different areas. First, our goal is to reduce overall homelessness by 80 individuals. And as you'll hear as I go into the presentation a bit, that was based on the data we had at the time. That was last July, that indicated that we had just about 320 individuals experiencing homelessness. Because that number moves and we're not satisfied yet with the quality of the data, we've kind of locked the number in at 80, but that it's also a percentage target. That's going to require increasing housing opportunities for those who are experiencing homelessness by 100 units. One of the sub-goals on the journey is ending veteran homelessness in Concord. And then 2 enabling activities are to create and implement a combined working model for how we actually coordinate the efforts of government and not-for-profit and business activities and citizens. And that will involve, of course, beginning to report and communicate much more regularly with the community about the opportunities, about the issue itself and the opportunities to participate in sustainably and permanently making homelessness rare and brief. One of the activities we've also taken up is to normalize and create an automated response in cases of cold weather emergencies. We've been fortunate this winter with these brutal cold weather situations that two of our community organizations, the Concord Coalition to End Homelessness and the Friendly Kitchen, have stepped up to create 24/7 warming opportunities for individuals who are particularly vulnerable. But we want to have this planned and not have groups scrambling and to just, when the temperature gets to a certain degree, to activate what the coverage will be and have adequate staffing in place and trained volunteers to supplement that staffing. One of the things that is critical to actually driving reductions and making sure that everything we're doing is working to get to those outcomes is having good data. And Councilman Schlosser has been an incredibly active and helpful part of the effort to really enumerate by name in real time and get to that level of quality data what we're actually looking at in the community. Now, we rely on the State's Bureau of Housing Services for the data that they collect from local organizations. We are pushing the quality so that we'll be able to understand, at least on a monthly basis, how the number is changing, whether what we're doing is working, and trends within the data. You'll see that the number has really shot up since last fall. We don't necessarily trust that this is accurate and have been working to get better insight into the data input, whether the state is actually getting the right reports from the vendor who is analyzing the data for them. But as of last month, we were at 418 individuals. That includes members of families throughout the county. What we understand, because the data is not yet quite good enough, but what we understand from the organizations doing outreach is that assume that about 90% of that number is City of Concord, the rest being the rest of the county. So we want to reduce that number. First of all, we want to get an accurate number, but we want to reduce that number by 25% and at least bring that number down by 80 people this year. And want to just really highlight a bright spot. When we started this effort to enumerate how many individuals we're talking about, who they are, what their circumstances are, we saw that we had a pretty significant number of veterans experiencing homelessness. That number, we're really proud to say, is down to 6. And so I think it just shows the power of focus, like knowing who we're talking about, their individual circumstances, and rallying all of the organizations with resources. We've been able to drive that number down. I'll just say a bit about how the other elements of the plan and how our work groups have really shown up. Thanks to the mayor, we've had meetings with developers about how we can get folks with the capacity to build and adapt housing, getting them thinking about how they can participate. We've had tremendous support from the Julie Palmieri and the Concord Redevelopment Authority about just how we can better support private landlords and the kinds of matching that we can be doing. We've had tremendous support from the Chamber of Commerce. They've had both a forum this year and have been really reaching out to local businesses to understand the ways that others in the community can participate, and also want to lift up some of the terrific suggestions, including from Councilmember Kurtz, around the way we might, over the course of the summer, engage in a much more sophisticated training program for volunteers to supplement the work of paid staff at the homeless serving organizations. So we are on the way to the progress that we know is possible. One of the critical activities now, and we've been grateful for the support of philanthropy in the community, and also have submitted funding applications for public support, but we need to hire a project manager to do the key task of knitting together all of the activities of the different organizations, government, not-for-profit, business, who each have a piece of the action, but the key to progress we see across the country in those places that are winning on this issue is having a coordinated, data-driven team to know what's going on, what's working, to course correct in real time, and to just continue to align policies and efforts so that we can make homelessness rare and brief. We're happy to be returning to the City Council on some periodic basis to report on our progress, but it's absolutely within this community's grasp to be a leader in reducing homelessness. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Would you entertain some questions if we have? Sure. Anybody? Councilor McNamara.
Thank you, and that's pretty incredible that you brought your veterans down to 6. Thank you for all the work that you're doing. Question I have is the federal government doesn't view couch surfing or people who are living in their cars into their homeless data. Do we follow that rule here in Concord, or do we have a handle on, and do we count those people?
People living in cars are counted. They would fall under not in a place fit for human habitation. Those who are couch surfing are often invisible, and so those are not individuals and families who are typically showing up in the data that the state collects that's mandated by HUD. However, the school coordinator for homeless students often has a handle on what that number is. It's very frequently families and young people who are in that couch surfing situation.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilor Kretovic.
Thank you, Your Honor. Often in our conversations with the school district, Concord School District puts on their meeting agenda every single month the number of homeless families in the Concord School District, which hovers right around 100. And then at Merrimack County, Merrimack Valley School District, it's right around 50. They are very much crushing under the weight of expenses for transportation of these students that are not from Concord. They are living here in Concord or unhoused in Concord. They are transporting them to other communities. They have stated that they transport to Manchester. Even a student from Merrimack Valley that has to be transported to Manchester, and if there's a Concord student also being transported to Manchester, that alone is $1,200 because it's $600 per student. There's no savings when it comes here. These expenses that are coming together around homelessness are really starting to impact the community. And there's a lot of question about why are we, the city of Concord and the Concord taxpayers, why are we being the ones that are funding people when it is other people from the county area? My hope is that we can get more of a voice at the table at the county commissioner's office so that they can help. But a bigger question is, when we look to our neighbors in Manchester, they're going to spend $1 million of taxpayer money to put together a homeless shelter, something that is operated year-round. So while cold weather expansion of the current winter shelter is a partial solution, that doesn't really help the people that are in need right now. What opportunities do you see in Concord for us to do better for our communities that are unhoused?
Sure. What a great question.
I know it's a big question.
Yeah, I'll just say about the cold weather shelter, like job number one is let's not be a community that lets people die. So that's just totally the crisis end of things. But you've pointed out something that is both infuriating and should inspire us. So much money is spent not solving this problem. I'm sure the police, anyone from the healthcare system here, any librarians, school teachers could say, moving this problem around, and this is just anywhere in the country, it's so costly to whole communities, not simply the people who are struggling in this unhoused situation. This is why coordination and really clear goals are key, because as overwhelming as the problem feels, even if we have 418 individuals in the county, that's less than 1% of the population. Totally a last mile problem. But it requires so much coordination because the eligibility for this or that, and everyone's doing such earnest work, but they're doing it in their own lane. And the key to progress is just to kind of coordinate that all, to braid it all together, to have really clear targets, to really treat those who are in a housing crisis the way you treat people who are in a health crisis. It's very individual. Like, you don't lump people together. You begin looking at the individual, the family, you realize there are a dozen paths to solution, as opposed to thinking this is all the same problem. And so I think your challenge is exactly the right one, and you've also pointed to the need to be thinking regionally and frankly to be thinking about, you know, the state and communities, not simply each community as an island, but someone's got to begin. And I'm really proud of the fact that Concord is leaning into this.
Can I make a follow-up comment?
Follow-up?
I appreciate the comments, and I don't mean to be infuriating, but you know that that voice is out there. And if we don't raise it up, then we can't answer the question for people as well. So I appreciate your answer.
Thank you. Councilor Schultz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for briefing us. I'm curious to know, to what degree are you aware if any of the folks that leave the state hospital after being under care, or any of the departing inmates from the women's prison or the men's prison enter the homeless population here in Concord, if that is something that is a problem at this point?
I don't have current information on that. I know a study was done a few years ago, and it indicated that was not the case, but it was before my time living in Concord. But I think it's a really important question to ask, and I think wherever you go around the country where they're making progress on the issue, one of the things they've done is they've really strengthened their discharge practices, so no one is just, you know, jettisoned and said good luck. You know, that there's real coherence to that process.
If I may interject, the results of that study indicated that it was more of an issue with individuals being released from the county jail
Oh, interesting.
than it was from the state prison, mainly because when they're released from the county jail, if they get a cab, the cab generally takes them to Concord. So that's the impact.
Thank you.
Councilor Grady next.
Thank you, Your Honor, and thank you, Ms. Haggerty, for being here today and for all the work you do. We know that Concord alone, the city of Concord, can't solve this problem, as we just discussed. So do you have representatives from the city, from the county, and the state on the steering committee? And also, do you have somebody serving that has lived experience with being unhoused or is currently unhoused?
On the committee, we have a county representative, and we also have attending regularly someone from the Bureau of Housing and Homelessness from the state. They provide the data to us. We don't have a specific seat for someone who has lived experience of homelessness, but our meetings are open to the public, and we always have outreach workers and people who are directly in touch with individuals. And frankly, we don't know what people's experiences have been. So we may well have someone with lived experience of homelessness or within their family.
I've been in the past.
Any other questions? Well, thank you. Thank you for the presentation, Ms. Haggerty. And it feels funny for me to be calling you that, Roseanne, but thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for the work that you and Councilor Schlosser and the other members of the steering committee are doing on a regular basis to address the challenges of trying to be responsible and attentive to our unhoused population.
May I?
Sure.
So I just want to emphasize, I think your support has been helpful, but this notion that it has to be a public-private partnership. I was talking to somebody this week who said, well, the city should do this. And I said, the city has a role, an important role in this, but it needs the work of all the business community, the nonprofits, the city, and in some instances, the county and other agencies. So that's the key message, is that this has to be sort of an all-in strategy. And I think both the membership of the steering committee represents some of that, perhaps not absolutely everybody, but that's a really important message we want to give out to the community. And the voices of both persons with lived experience, if not their participation in the committee, but their voices are important, and the voices of residents. My residents in Ward 7 or residents around the city, their voices are important because what their interests and values are really needs to shape the path forward. But we know people value people being safe and not being out in the cold. So that's sort of a simple goal we have for ourselves in the next few months, to really write that plan so that we as a community have a plan that makes sense so that people are not exposed to extreme cold. So, but thank you for your help.
Thank you. Counselor.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor,
Perez.
I did think of a question.
All right.
Thank you.
I'll let
Thank
you
you.
slip in under the wire.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Haggerty, for being here and for all of your efforts. For individuals listening at home, or in the event that constituents reach out to us, what's the best source of the information you've shared with us? Is the presentation posted somewhere? What's the best way to disseminate information on the progress that the city is making, the 5 goals? And also, if there are individuals at home who are feeling moved to help in some way, where would you guide them in that moment of generosity or desire to be of service on this issue?
Thank you for the question. I believe that the presentation, if not automatically put into the council minutes, we can certainly ask for that to be the case, and our committee minutes are on the council website. For those who are interested in supporting the work, we are now partnering with Granite United Way, which will be the employer of record of our project manager when we have the funding in place. And I just cannot emphasize enough how critical this role is. It really has to be someone waking up every day just knitting all these efforts together. That's what's going to make the difference. And so I would say Granite United Way would be the place to send any kind of contribution directed toward the work of the steering committee, and particularly the work of getting the project manager in place who can be regularly updating the numbers. And our dream is to have like a regular dashboard, and we'll get there, but not without this project manager. We're pulling on a lot of people's kind of thin slivers of time to make this work.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Counselor. Thank you very much, Ms. Haggard.
Thank you.
Thank you for your work. Now, I have a report on the facility at Beaver Meadow Golf Course. Do we need time to set that up, Mr. City Manager?
Just a moment. Should hopefully just be a minute, but considering my technical abilities, it may be longer.
Oh, have faith in yourself.
There's missing a big detail there. It doesn't look.
Okay. All right. Before you start, I'd just like to make a brief statement, Mr. Deputy City Manager. There's been a lot of, I've received a lot of communications from people who seem to have some misunderstanding of what this presentation is. So I would just like to touch on that currently the new facility at Beaver Meadow is not in any budget. It is not in the fiscal 2025 budget. The fiscal 2026 budget has not yet been proposed by the city manager to this body. This evening's presentation is merely receiving a report from the advisory committees that have looked at this. These are advisory committees. These are not committees that make a decision. They are committees that advise the city council. No action taken tonight will authorize funding for this project or any project, nor will it greenlight breaking ground on any project. And no action would take place on this or any other project without first having a public hearing, and after the public hearing, city council action or a city council vote. I also want to touch on the fact that a number of people who emailed the city council expressed concerns about the ethics complaint that has been made and whether or not we should hear this presentation in light of that. I take the ethics process very seriously. That's why I appointed a board of ethics for the city. However, I think it's important to understand that this report should go forward, because it is very possible that, for example, if we delayed this until the Ethics Board met in April, this would serve as a precedent to allow people to use complaints to the Board of Ethics to delay any variety of projects, or to hamstring any number of city councilors in any number of ways and circumstances. So we are moving forward with this, and we're going to do so in a way that does not, again, hamstring any future council in consideration of any issues that come before it. Mrs. Deputy City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. Before we get started, I'd like to introduce the gentleman to my right. We have Bill Hickey from Turner Consulting Group, and also Brian Garris from Milestone Construction. They are the gentlemen who have helped us work on putting together the plans and the costing for what we're going to be looking at tonight, and they can help answer any questions that the City Council may have. If you recall, the City Council referred this project to three committees: the Ad Hoc Building Committee, the Beaver Meadow Golf Course Advisory Committee, and also the Fiscal Policy Advisory Committee. The three options were to renovate the existing facility. That price came in at $5,427,000. The second option was to renovate with an addition, where that price came in at $8,074,000. And the third option, to build a new building, came in at $8,054,000. For the purpose of the presentation, we're going to consider option 2 and 3 as basically the same cost, so that we just have to go through a couple of pro formas as opposed to all three. Just to your recollection, the first option here is just the elevation of basically renovating the existing facility. We've got the west elevation, the east elevation, the north elevation, and then the south elevation. The second is the renovation with additions. You can see that it looks a little bit different on all four of the elevations, a different view, and certainly the building would have a much different look. And the final option is a new building. Again, they all look similar as far as the overall design goes, but this would be a completely new building that would be built pretty much adjacent to the existing building, kind of behind where the 10th tee would be located. The committee recommendations were: the Ad Hoc Beaver Meadow Building Committee recommended option number 3, which was the new building. The Advisory Committee, again, option number 3, the new building. And the Fiscal Policy Advisory Committee, after reviewing the financials and the pro formas, again, they also recommended a new building. So all three committees recommended building a new building. When we look at the tax rate impact to the general fund for this project, compared to some of the other businesses within the city, we were asked to compare to the Parks and Recreation Program, the library, the current golf course, what the city is currently paying for the irrigation system and the arena. If you look at the Parks and Rec program, and basically it's the same concept for all three, we looked at the operating revenues for the program, the operating expenses, the general fund total operations, which would be net. We looked at the total debt service to have a total general fund impact. And for the Parks and Recreation Department, the impact on the tax rate is about 6.79%. The tax rate is currently $984. The impact on a $350,000 house is $233.90. For the library, again, going down through the same analysis, the impact to the library on a $350,000 property is $142.58. For the golf course, for the irrigation and a couple of other minor projects that the general fund is paying for the debt service on, the impact on a $350,000 house is $19.06. So this building project would be on top of that number. And for the arena, there's currently just a small project out there, and it has an impact of about 27 cents on a $350,000 property. I was also asked to compare more specifically to the Heights Community Center for that building project and the debt service there and the operations, for the pools, and also for the funds that the city provides to the Concord Area Transit. For the Heights Community Center, again, going down through the same analysis, the impact on that is $42.33. That is built into the number that you saw on the previous page for the overall recreation department. The pools by themselves, the impact there is $34.12. There's been a lot of capital projects that have gone on for the pools, as well as the annual operating costs. Again, that $34.12 is already included in the Parks and Rec number that you saw on the previous page. And then Concord Area Transit, this is a funding that the city provides on an ongoing basis, and that overall impact is $12.53 on a $350,000 project. When we look at the new facility, this is option 3. We wanted to take into account, or it made sense to take into account, additional expenses that would be included in the facility. We had included window washing, cleaning staff. That would be one permanent part-time position. The impact of a new building on natural gas. We had the new building. We would have a larger space, but it would be more efficient. We also had the existing natural gas budget that we were include here. Electricity, we would have the new building, the additional space, again, but more efficient. So we included an estimate of what we thought the electricity costs would be. The electricity in the existing budget, we kind of reduced that out of the overall cost. And then the plan calls for a solar project along with this. And so we would see some savings in solar, so it would be an overall net savings that we think in the overall facility or the overall golf fund. Water and wastewater, we believe that with the more bathrooms in use, that we would have additional expenses there. A larger building, the janitorial expenses would go up. Repairs and maintenance, we included about $3 a square foot. Obviously we had to adjust for what's already in the current budget. The clubhouse maintenance reserve, it made sense to try to start putting some dollars aside for the future. There would be, even though this would be a new building, there would be future maintenance that would have to occur. To start someplace with some reserve money would make sense. Having an additional simulator in the building, we added additional expenses there, and then some software maintenance. So the total of that was $77,800, which is included in the pro forma that we'll see shortly. The big piece of this is the overall debt service. So what I have here is just a debt service schedule that goes out 20 years. We used a 3.5% interest rate, which is basically the interest rate that we received about a month ago on our most recent bond sale, and that's on a 20-year bond sale. If you look at the total cost of the project, it's $8,054,000. We included an allocation for previously bonded design, $460,000. That was actually bonded in this most recent sale. The Land Water Conservation Fund estimate, we included $500,000 here if we would be successful in receiving that grant upon application. And then we included $250,000 for a donation number. So the total amount to bond we anticipate would be approximately $6.8 million. And that's the number that we used if you look at the declining number going out 20 years. Looking at that, the year one payment would be $581,808. We're expecting that the golf fund portion would be about $115,000 of that, leaving a difference of $466,000. The impact on the tax rate would be 80.89%. That would be an impact of $30.63 annually on a $350,000 property. I also took a look at the same exact thing, except taking out the land water conservation estimate and donation estimates. And that brings the bonding amount to $7,594,000. The year one payment would be $645,000. The same golf fund portion would leave an amount of $530,000 for the general fund portion. That increases the impact to 1.01%, or $34.81 on a $350,000 property. That's a difference of $4.18 for annually between the two options, or between the two using land water conservation or and donations or not. I am providing the pro forma out 20 years. This is very small and very hard to read. I did shorten it up in the next page to make it a little bit easier to take a look at, but this presentation is in the council agenda, so you can go into the council agenda and take a look at it there. And I think it'd be a little bit easier to read, but I wanted to show that we had it included here. This is a little bit better, probably not a lot. The thing that I would like to point out is that We do have some additional rental income that we would anticipate, as well as additional simulator income. So if you look at the FY27 projected number, we have an additional $24,000 and $24,240 as additional rental income. I want to just go up a little bit. For the concession sales, you'll see that it's $40,000 up above, and then down at the bottom in that first orange section, you'll see an additional $35,000. So we have additional rent income that we'd see coming into the project, in addition to the additional expenses that we would have. If you look down into the expense category that transfers out for the clubhouse debt, it's $115,000 like I just described just a moment ago. So that's the first piece of it. And then all the other expenses that I kind of went through, we could summarize here in comp, fringe, outside services, right down to the water and wastewater. And that would leave a net, projected net, it's kind of that second line up from the bottom in gray. It's hard to see, a loss of $157,000. Just like to point out that the working capital of the fund at the end of 25 is expected to be $1,023,000. At the end of 26 is expected to be $1,093,000. That number would be drawn down over a period of years to help pay for part of that debt service costs, and then it would kind of average out and go back up. If you take a look at the 20-year schedule, you'll see the ebbs and flows of it over that 20-year period. The next is option one, which is basically to renovate the existing facility. Again, we went down through the same expense lines. Obviously, they change a little bit because of the different sides of the building and just a renovation. The total of this would be additional expenses of about $55,630, and that's the number that we included in the pro forma as we were projecting forward, and also what it would look like for the overall impact to the tax rate. The debt service that we have over here is for option one is a $5,427,000 project. Again, the $460,000 that's already been bonded for design. We did include $500,000 for land water conservation and $50,000 for donations, a smaller amount for a smaller project. The net came out to $4.4 million, which is what we used for the calculation of the debt service. The first year debt service under this scenario would be $375,000. We expected the golf fund to pay pay $80,000 of that. It would be fewer expenses, but also be less revenue coming in. We wouldn't have additional concession revenue. We wouldn't have additional simulator revenue. The net would be $295,000. The impact on the tax rate is 0.56%, or $19.38 on a $350,000 property. I did the same thing in this next slide where I took out the land water conservation estimate. I did leave in the donations here. Honestly, I think that was a mistake that I left it in. So that would probably be a little bit less. The impact here would be $22.17 for the $350,000 property. Difference of $279, so that would be a few cents more because of that $50,000 that I should have taken out of this slide. Again, I did a pro forma for 20 years, small print. You can take a look at it and see if you have any questions on that. Again, we went a little bit bigger, but you can see that the additional restaurant income is not included here, and the additional simulator revenue is not included here. Overall, at the bottom, we have a projected loss of $135,000 in the first year. We have the same scenario for the ending working capitals, and we'd be drawing down on that over the course of the years, and you can see the ebbs and flows of that as time goes out. And that is the presentation, and I'd be glad to answer any questions, but I'd like to give these gentlemen an opportunity if they have anything they'd like to add to the project itself.
I have nothing to add.
Okay.
Pretty straightforward.
Very good. Thank you.
Councilor Brown.
Yes, thank you. Actually, my questions are for the gentleman from Milestone and H.L. Turner. I know, gentlemen, you're familiar with this project because you were looking at doing the bathrooms and the pro shop and the clubhouse renovations in 2018. That's correct? In 2001, the clubhouse was expanded and renovated. There was a $365,000 bond. The expectation was expanding the clubhouse will generate more revenue from rentals, from year-round facility, but that didn't pan out. The taxpayers ended up picking up that bond the last 4 years. So in 2018, when the golf course was still an enterprise fund, I believe that the Golf Advisory Committee reached out to both of you, to both H.L. Turner for plans. I believe it was for the pro shop and the bathrooms, and they reached out to Milestone for a quote on the pavilion. And the quote came back high. The Golf Advisory Committee said, yeah, that's really high. We're an enterprise fund. Shortly afterwards, later in 2018, the golf became a special revenue fund, which then meant that taxpayers would be paying the brunt of capital projects. So I'm looking at, the expectation was there was to be a renovation with an addition and a new building. And I'm looking at your assessment that you had done in '21.
Counselor, is there a question in there somewhere?
Yes, because I'm concerned the renovations, when I look through their recommendations for the facility assessment, there are things like the tile flooring is soiled, stained, and dirty throughout the building, and you offer a number that if you replace it, it would cost that much, or it could be cleaned. Repeatedly, it says that the vinyl tile flooring in the workroom is soiled, stained, and dirty. There's mismatched paint in the private office closet. So there are different renovation things that could have been done, and I'm concerned because it doesn't look like the renovation options for the ad hoc building committee went through this and looked at it, because the 2001 renovation and expansion was pretty comprehensive. It was architectural, structural, general construction. The renovations were 4,063 square foot existing space, addition of 160 square feet.
Counselor, there's a question.
Yes, the question is, why did you recommend tearing it down to the studs for a renovation and not going through your own facility assessments?
I think that's a question to the city, not to these gentlemen, and the city is the one that actually, the city council actually made the decision to go forward with getting pricing on building a new building or renovating the existing building. These gentlemen did a facility assessment. Turner did a facility assessment. Their assessment basically came back with, these are the things that they looked at in the building, and these are the issues that they found in this building. It wasn't, the city didn't ask them to make a recommendation, should we tear the building down, should we build a new building, should we renovate? That wasn't the question at that time. This was an assessment of the building that was there.
Follow up?
Follow up.
Have there been any corrections, any repairs since this report was written in 2021 to the building?
There have not been any major changes to the building because the city council had asked us to go forward with looking at making these recommendations for what we should do with the building. The decision was made not to put any specific money in the building other than what we had to keep it going. We have had to put a new furnace in because we didn't have any heat in the building. Right now, we're in the process of replacing the walk-in cooler because it is dead. We are replacing a fan on the vent in the kitchen because it is dead. We have only done the things that we had to do in order to keep the building going because it didn't make a lot of sense to put good money after bad if there was going to be a major construction project. We've been following the council's direction on which way we should go with this building.
One more follow-up.
Councilor Kurtz?
She just said she has a follow-up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, I do know that there was another committee that was put together, an ad hoc clubhouse committee, to look at whether to renovate or to rebuild. And I do know that a former employee of Milestone was a member of that committee that recommended rebuilding instead of renovating, and I feel that's a conflict.
A question? Is that a question, ma'am?
That is a statement.
Councilor Kurtz?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, please advise if this is not the appropriate forum from this question. I'm looking at the report that accompanied this presentation and the recommendation from FPAC, the Fiscal Policy Advisory Committee. I would just love to hear from a representative of FPAC, sort of about that conversation and why option 3 was the recommendation from
Chairman,
FPAC.
would
Is
you like to
that
respond?
appropriate to?
Sure.
I'm sorry, Councilor Fennessy, I did not intend to put you on the spot.
It's okay. I've seen this presentation, I think, at least 3 times, if not more. So at FPAC, the recommendation was to move forward with option 3. And I'll go sort of through process of elimination. So option 2, when we spoke to the professionals, they basically said, option 2, there's no significant reason why you would do option 2 as opposed to option 3 unless you thought the current footprint was really important to preserve. And if you believe that that was really important, then option 2 you should go with, but there were challenges associated with doing that, including the additional costs that you would incur to have either to keep portions of the facility open during construction or have temporary facilities set up. There are potential operational impacts that could result from that with respect to both food and beverage as well as simulators. So I think from FPAC's standpoint, the decision was option 2 is kind of off the table. I mean, from a financial standpoint, there was no, and I believe the Beaver Meadow Advisory Committee also felt like there was nothing sacred about the existing footprint. So then you were left with option 1 versus option 3. I think from a financial standpoint, option 3 seemed like it made more sense. Number 1, you can keep the existing facility open while construction takes place of a new facility. So that avoids some operational issues, potential loss of expenses, having to bring in temporary either bathrooms or facilities to sort of maintain operations. 2, what we were told by, again, the experts was the renovation is not putting paint on the wall. That once they sort of dug into it, the concern was you're basically going to the studs and actually past the studs, if I'm not mistaken, because there's some underlying issues with the infrastructure, such as, for example, with the bathrooms, there's an issue with the underlying piping coming into the bathroom. So if you're going all the way sort of from the beginning, there are benefits to the increased size of the footprint of a new facility. For example, there are space limitations in the current footprint for food and beverage. In the winter, the area for food and beverage doubles as one of the places for simulators. So, for example, on a Friday afternoon when there's a bunch of kids skiing, there's not really a great gathering place inside for people. They can come in, there's a small area for food and beverage with, I think, 2 or 3 tables, but the larger area is being utilized for simulators. So that's sort of one. 2, the existing footprint wouldn't have space, for example, for cross-country skiing. So one of the things that we heard on the ad hoc building committee was that our cross-country skiing community would like some space in a new facility so that, for example, they could store skis there. They could have an area for changing. They could, have easy access to bathrooms. That was another benefit of going with a new facility as opposed to sticking with the existing footprint. And then sort of a third, just off the top of my head, would be creating sort of a dedicated space for simulators that would be outside of where the food and beverage areas would be. So you would have more dedicated space, which hopefully would mean we could attract someone to man that in I would say, have a greater revenue potential in that space. And also by dedicating space for the simulators, you'd be able to use them more than right now. We use them, what, probably 4 or 5 months a year?
Probably about 4.
Yeah. So you could actually use them 12 months a year. And one of the things that we heard from the Golf Pro was if we had a dedicated space for simulators, like through the golf season, it actually creates an opportunity. There's a big movement for fitting of clubs, and people want all of the data associated with it. Well, it's much easier to do that in a space for a simulator than it is to try and use like a portable system to try and capture that information out on the driving range. So those are some of the reasons. I'm sure I've missed a few, but I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Councilor.
Councilor Grady Sexton.
Thank you, Your Honor. I do think that Councilor Fennessy did summarize the bulk of the conversation at that FPAC meeting accurately. I did just want to note that it was not a unanimous decision, and I did vote in opposition of that particular option because I didn't feel like I had heard from the community that there's an appetite to spend this much money on a project. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Sekou.
Thank you for the presentation, and thank you, Councilor Fennessy. My question is, when we are talking about new building and then we have an old existing building, when we are building the new building, the existing building will be used, right? After the new building is done, just the scenario, what is the purpose of the old building? What that will be used for?
It would get demolished.
What is the cost of demolition?
I think it's factored into the cost associated with the project. It's built in.
Do you know how much that would be?
I don't have that detail in front of me, but in the total project cost of $8,054,000, it would be, part of that cost.
One of the last phases, once we had that movement, that would come down, and there was also some discussion of potentially whether the tent might be able to be relocated into a more prominent position where it could be used more actively.
Because that will be helpful for us as elected officials here, because if you say something costs $8 million, a renovation, which is first option, costs $5 million. We are building, and there is an existing building. Once we finish this building, it's operational. We ask again, we need $2 million or $3 million to demolish that existing building. I get it. You said it's factored in there. Take even if it's $2 million. That's almost $6 million to build the new building, right?
Yeah, the tear down cost of that building is minimal, and it's going to be abated and cleaned up, and a machine would take that down in a day or two. I don't know the number off the top of my head, but it is a small number.
So the ground pipes and everything?
Everything, yep. We'd take that building away in a couple of days, clean up the site, and that's a very minimal cost in the overall scheme of things. Yep.
Follow up?
Follow up.
My next question is, if we are talking about cost of living and how we see today taxpayer, even if $1 is added to their tax, and here we are talking about a 350 household, like a house that costs that. For the option 3, if I'm correct, is 30.69. That's correct?
Yes, based on what I described here.
Renovation option 2, or option 1, it's $19. So it's $11 difference.
That sounds correct, yes.
How do you explain to us that $11 difference worth investing in that golf course for the $8 million?
I think if you look at the difference of you're spending over $5 million to renovate a 4,500 square foot building, or spend $8 million to increase the size of that to 10,500 square feet, and you would have a brand new building on a brand new footprint. You wouldn't have, you would be eliminating the old building, all the old problems. Whenever you renovate something, there are times where you get into the renovation and you have to come back and say, geez, this is something that we just didn't anticipate. We need more money. It eliminates that issue too. I think that if you look at having additional increased size capacity and additional future use for the additional $3 million, you basically are buying an awful lot for the next 20, 30, or 50 years.
Thank you.
Councilor Schlosser?
Thank you for the presentation and for the work. So was there any consideration of a smaller new building on the new site? Other than, because it's an $8 million building on the new site, but something like a $5 million new building where we would maintain the revenues, the benefits of using the current building while you're building, but not necessarily have it, I don't know, double the square foot.
You know, working with Phil and the team at Beaver Meadow and the committee, you know, to get the program that was desired, that was what we came up with. If we reduce the square footage, the revenue would drop. You'd have to lose either seating in the restaurant, space for the simulators, you know, space in the pro shop or whatever. So I don't know that we look specifically at a smaller building on the new location.
If that's what the council desires us to do, we could certainly do that. But that wasn't the charge we were given back a year ago.
Thank you, Your Honor. Gentlemen, if I asked you, what are the 5 most significant things that are happening with this current building today that leads you to believe we need to make significant changes, what would those 5 items be?
So I think the biggest one for me is the moisture, the water intrusion coming into the building. So we understand the vestibules, the roof has started to leak. We know in a number of areas around the sidewalls, the siding's rotted, water's getting into the framing. So water gets into a building and can cause an awful lot of damage. It really doesn't take long to do that. Another significant issue is the bathrooms. The bathrooms, you know, they back up and they cause all sorts of problems, canceling events and things like that. You know, and it's just a lot of smaller issues, a litany of mechanical, electrical, you know, equipment issues and things like that.
The kitchen is in terrible condition. It needs something dramatic to happen to it.
Can I ask a follow-up? The codes that we have in place today, are they the same codes as when this stuff was put in the 1960s? Are we talking complete new plumbing, complete new electrical, complete new walls? Is that what we're discussing here?
Yes.
Thank you.
Councilor Brown?
Thank you. Your pro forma assumes revenue from simulators and rental income, but already we are not seeing that revenue in simulators or rental income. In fact, the golf course runs a deficit in the winter, and I feel, looking at our political climate, it's so unstable. I do not believe we're going to have the
question.
Yes, so this was a resident asked me that if the golf course were to pick up half of the cost, and I sent this to you, Mr. LeBrun, earlier in the day, was to pick up half of the cost of this, the golf fund, how high would the rates have to be to cover that?
Council, in all fairness, you sent it to me after 4 o'clock this afternoon for a meeting that we were going into non-public at 5:30. So, you know, I haven't had a chance to take a look at that, but I'd be glad to prepare a response before the next council meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Keach?
Thank you, Your Honor. To any one of you gentlemen at the table, there's an organized effort to really torpedo this whole golf course. Is a crusade against it, I would say. Some on the council, some in the public, and everyone's entitled to their opinion. My question is, without a new golf course clubhouse, can the golf course exist?
I think that if you look at the business operation that the golf course has right now, it's been a fantastic operation for, you know, many people who play at Beaver Meadow on an ongoing basis, who use Beaver Meadow to ski, to snowshoe, to do any of the activities that they're doing. The conditions of the course are phenomenal. We hear that on a daily basis. If there's something needs to be done to that clubhouse one way or another, it's in very difficult condition. I think Beaver Meadow could continue to exist in some way, shape, manner, or form, but it really is going to be in the leadership of the City Council about what do you want us to do. You know, we've moved forward with the direction of the City Council to take a look at, you know, renovation with addition, new building. You know, we had made a proposal back several years ago to do a renovation, you know, replacing windows and doors and bathrooms, and that was, you know, sent back and said, let's take a look at a bigger project and think for the long term, what does this really need to happen? Even several years ago, I mean, the siding and the roofing on the building, was in need of attention. Certainly, there's a lot of things that are happening in that building that, need work on. But as far as Beaver Meadow goes, there's an enormous group of people who use that facility and use that property and have for many, many, many years. I think you'll find an awful lot of sentiment in that building and in that property for people that use Beaver Meadow. So do I think it would go away? No. Would it be different? Yeah. But I think something needs to happen over there one way or another.
Thank you.
Councilor Kurtz.
Thank you. Gentlemen, let me just preface this by saying, I know the question I'm going to pose is not something that the City Council asked you to look at. So I'm giving you this hypothetical. The new building, option 3, can you imagine a scenario in which there is a phased approach, and I know there are costs every time we bring equipment out, but a phased approach in which the city were to greenlight the essentials, bathrooms, plumbing, so that people who go to golf could have the most basic amenities, not thinking about event space or kitchens. Can you imagine a pathway to that, should the council ask you to develop it?
I would, obviously restrooms, pro shop, if you leave all the function space, the restaurant space, all that out, you clearly have a different venue. I think it could be, anything could be done.
Sorry, follow up, sir? Yes. Could you imagine a scenario in which whatever is built in this hypothetical phase 1 that perhaps better matches the appetite of the current community is not a sunk cost that then cannot be, could you then imagine a phase 2 which moves towards this picture of option 3? Do you understand what I'm saying?
How about if I handle this one? So, yes, I can, and I have.
Thank you.
I think one of the things to look at is, and actually Councilor Schlosser brought up the point, was if you're trying to, accommodate the needs of what has been expressed to City Council, you need a bigger facility. But let's say you can't do it now. Let's say you want to be able to do a bigger facility to accommodate other uses 5 years from now, 10 years from now. You could do that. One of the concerns that I've had is that where do you get to the point, speaking to the professionals, where you're putting so much money into the building where it triggers you having to come into compliance with the new codes? So you don't have a choice anymore. Once you get to a certain point where you're making improvements somewhere along the line, anything that goes up now has to meet new codes to a certain extent. So maybe there's a threshold you can kind of figure out there. How far can you go at any one time, even though you can't play that game too much, where you spend so much money and then you're below that threshold, and then a couple of years later you come back and spend some more money and just keep whittling away at it. My concern with that is, yes, you could do it, you could figure out a way to do it, is that cost, even though you think you're going to save money over a 20-year horizon, it's really going to cost you more. So, but if that's all you can stomach at the time, because there's other competing interests, there's other needs out there, then maybe that's just what you have to do. Maybe you end up building a brand new $5 million facility on the new site that you want to go, but you have to be willing to, this council needs to be willing to tell the ski folks, sorry, we don't have a place for you. Restaurant, we wanted to do something to have a little more use for the restaurant. We can't do that. The simulator, we can't, instead of having 3 simulators and taking that additional revenue in, we can only do 2. But you could always add the 3rd one into another, add another element to the building in the near future. I can envision that. Okay. But that would not meet what the council asked us to do.
I understand,
Which
right?
is
I absolutely understand. I'm not trying to relitigate. Thank you.
So you could do something like that.
Councilor Moore.
You have the comparisons and the impact on property taxes, which you included, like the library, the Concord area transit, and I'm confused and a little bit uncomfortable like the Concord area, and I think this is for you because you I assume did the presentation, but Concord area transit we know we offer as a free service. Generally, statistically, it's going to be lower income folks that are getting to work, to school, doctor's appointments. The library, similar, disproportionate amount of lower income people are going to be going to the library to job hunt online or things like that. So I'm very confused at why those type of amenities are in comparison to a golf course.
The big reason is because I was asked to compare those specific items, you know, with the recreation, pools, community center, golf. Those are all recreation related. Library and the transportation cat. That was just asked of me to compare for that purpose.
Can I ask who so I can ask that person the reason to have it on there?
I believe that was Councilor Foote.
Yes, it was. I was trying to understand this whole exercise, and after listening to the presentation on homeless, I'm probably going to ask you for one more comparison, too.
Thank you very much.
So, it was me.
If I could intercede, I think it's very insightful for you to ask these, because these are the things you aren't required by law to provide to the community. So each one of these, every time we've had a recession, or the last several recessions, these are the items where the community comes to you and says, just eliminate the pools, just eliminate the library, just eliminate the golf course, just eliminate the arena, just eliminate Parks and Rec and close and that's what they ask you to do, because they can find, because somebody doesn't use the arena, so why would we need an arena? You had a whole slew of people turn out and say, we don't need libraries. We don't need, so just close the library. You could save $1 million+ right then and there. So that's why these are not police station, fire station, things like that. These are the ones that you're not required by. You don't need to provide Concord area transit. You can simply say, let's save those $200,000 tomorrow.
Thank you, Your Honor. So a question to the manager. So in my opinion, these are all non-required items, but important items that add to the value of the community when we attract new residents. It's quality of life issues that are not necessary, but add a little something extra.
These are your values. These are the things that make Concord, not Franklin, and not Manchester, and not Nashua. With you don't want to be those communities. And they want to be themselves. You know, so how many else, we've talked about this, how many else has 6 pools and a splash pad on the side of the Mississippi? Nobody. Because you're Concord. And that's why you have these here. That's why when these recommendations have come forward from the community, many members of the community about different pieces, you've said, thank you for your thoughts, but no thank you.
Councilor Brown.
Thank you. Mr. City Manager, I've interpreted Councilor Foote's request to an assessment of all of our recreational offerings and how many people use them. Can we get that report before there's any kind of decision on this, just to see who uses what, so we know the investment, the value of that investment, and we'll get a sense from our community what is truly important, because I believe that the golf course started as an enterprise fund, it was gifted, it was originally a private course, but libraries were never meant to generate revenue. In fact, so many people turned to the library, especially during the Depression. I think they had more users back in the 30s than we have today, but I feel like we're going to need a lot of those free services more now going forward. So it would be really helpful to have an assessment of all our recreational offerings, how many people use them, and what they cost.
Absolutely, and you already have it. It's in your budget. Yeah. When you look at your budget for the last 3 years, when you've reviewed the budget, you've seen every single one of those numbers you just asked for.
Right in the back of the budget.
However, they don't.
And they've been presented to you.
They don't always say how many people use them.
Yes, they do.
Like,
Yes,
we'll say,
I can point in the budget if you'd like me to show you how to read the budget.
Councilor.
I was only going to add to the discussion, but I think we're really at questions. I'll pass. Thank you.
Yeah, I just have a question for Mr. LeBrun and also for H.L. Turner, because you guys have designed various facilities for various golf courses. What components make for a successful golf course? A golf course that people want to go to, people want to play at, a golf course that is brings bringing in revenue the way that you would like it to? What are the components?
I mean, I think the very first thing that you need to have is you need to have a great staff of people. And we have that. You know, when you walk into Beaver Meadow, you have a group of people that, you know, greet you at the door. They know people by name over time. They are very helpful with trying to provide them, you know, whatever they might need in order to have an enjoyable round of golf. And, you know, let's face it, you know, if you're putting down $25 at, you know, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, you know, you want to have a lot of fun when you go out there, and that's what it's made for people, you know, of all walks of life. In addition to that, you have to have great conditions in a golf course, right? So, and our conditions really are fantastic compared to many other golf courses. Our greens are terrific, our fairways are terrific, the irrigation that the City Council has approved over the past few years, and the last year would be coming up in this next budget, you know, has really had a tremendous impact on the conditions of the course, and really kind of made watering much more better overall economies for the amount of water that we use. And then you have to have a great facility. And then, you know, it doesn't have to be a huge facility, but it has to be a good facility that people can be proud of to walk into, you know, and enjoy, you know, having enough space for people after a round of golf to, you know, sit and have a burger, for people who are skiing to come in and have some hot chocolate, you know, for somebody that just wants to, you know, come in off the street, you know, and enjoy a sandwich. I mean, you know, that makes for a great setting overall for really anybody, and anybody can go there. I think if you have the right combination, but the biggest thing is having the right people, having the good conditions of the course, and having a decent facility for people to come into. And like we all know, whenever you go to any restaurant or any store or anything, you know, you got to have good bathrooms too.
Thank you. Councilor Horn, then Councilor Krivik.
Can you talk a little bit about how we have a property that has fallen so far into disrepair that we can't fix it with some simple preventative maintenance? And how would I convince a constituent that we are wisely going to spend $7 or $8 million of your dollars and not let this happen again?
I don't want to put words into the mouth of one of the contractors that, you know, we sat with recently, but, you know, he said that back when this building was built, it was, you know, built, you know, the conditions that was being built in at the time were less than optimal. And so I think when you look at that to start with, and the codes are much different today, certainly there's been a lot of, you've heard a lot of water infiltration that has come down into the building, through the building, on the sides of the building. You know, you can see where some of the concrete is deteriorating, you know, around the foundation. Looking at, you know, why hasn't it been preventively maintained better? You know, that's, the money hasn't been put into it. You know, maybe as staff we haven't asked for all the right money, but there hasn't been dollars put into it in order to maintain or replace the siding and make other repairs that have needed to be done. Certainly over the last few years, because of the discussion about redoing the facility or building a new facility, and mainly building a new facility, there's been a conscious decision not to put any significant dollars other than what we really needed to do just to keep the building going. And I think that there's probably been an acceleration of that deterioration over the past few years, and you can see that in the siding and in the foundation. You can see some of the holes in the walls that have been repaired. You know, it's certainly accelerated a little bit over the past few years.
City Manager.
So the answer is you need to have perspective. And the perspective is the City Council over the last 30 years has said, these are special revenue funds. And what we'd like to do as best we can, for as long as we can, make sure that the money generated from these facilities, from these, we have the arena here, we have golf here, and you could also add the airport. the money generated from these facilities will be used to maintain those facilities, and we're not really will put any more money into this, because we want it to be self-supporting. Then about 20 years ago, 22 years ago or so, the city council was dealing with the dilemma of the arena. And the arena was at such, so if you go to the arena, you'll notice that, you know, the chillers and the equipment there, and we'll be talking about this during budget, you know, some of that stuff is from the 40s and 50s. It was used at that time. The glass at the arena is used glass we got from someplace else. The boards are used boards we got from someplace else. Every single possible way you can make to stretch the taxpayer's dollar or the user's dollar to go into this, that's what they did. Until they got to the point where and you could make the same discussion occurred about 25 years ago, where they said, you know what, the locker rooms at the arena, they're horrible, they're disgusting. I don't want to bring my children in there. How can we have events in there? So the arena folks came to the city council and said, we can't make this work. Either we're going to have locker rooms that don't work and nobody will use anymore and we're going to condemn them, or the taxpayers are going to step up and we're going to float a general obligation bond and we're going to do those things. We're going to be talking about, again, that in about 2 months, about doing some more projects like that for the arena. When it comes time to do the parking lot, $1.5 million, $2 million parking lot at the arena can't pay for that. So we're either going to close the arena or the general fund's going to step up and pay for that parking lot. And the same thing is going to go on with the airport, and the same things are coming on. And we've been telling this to the council every year for the last 10 years, that the day will come when if you want these values, if these are important to you, the general fund is going to have to step in and pay for these. You can have the operating funds be covered by the users, but the major capital funds that go into these things, when these things were originally built, when we took the arena over, when we took the airport over, we took the golf course over, the day will come when that building that was put up in 1936 or whatever year put in, it's not going to last anymore, and the general fund is going to have to step in. Today's the day. So you can either say, you know what, we're not putting any more general fund dollars into this thing, just like the irrigation system, and you're going to be saying the same thing to the airport, and you're going to be saying the same thing to arena, that, you know, hey, the people who skate, that's a special thing. They can pay for themselves, and they can pay for the building, and they can pay for the roof, and they can pay for the chiller, they can pay for the boards and everything else, and when nobody's going to help them, and they're on their own, and therefore it'll be so expensive to skate that there'll be no more youth hockey, there'll be no more girls hockey from the high school, there'll be no more boys hockey from the high school, or the general fund's going to step up and pay for that, and we're going to say that's a value for the community. That's where you are. That's why. That's because the city council tried to squeeze as hard as they could to make sure that these funds were bled as best they could to pay for them before they went to the general fund, knowing the day would come when they'd have to come to the general fund.
Thank you, Your Honor. I want to acknowledge a statement that Councilor Keach made with regards to the general public, in some regards, are really trying to undermine this project. And there has, in that conversation, been targeted negativity towards H.L. Turner and Milestone Construction. And Mr. City Manager, just as a history lesson, this goes back to 2019 when we were going to make those renovations on the building for the window sashes, for the bathrooms, and it was the construction teams that came back, and it was well over what we had originally budgeted. When you came to this council and you said it's going to be some potentially $80,000 more, that was when that city council said, well, let's put the brakes on. And at the same time, Milestone Construction and H.L. Turner were already doing facility assessments on the police station, the library, the fire department facilities, and we asked them to add this project on and to do a review of the golf course because of the condition of the building for that project. Do I have that timeline correct, that they are not at fault for raising their hand and saying, yes, we can go ahead and add this to your facility study?
No, maybe Bill Hickey is, but no. I mean, we asked them. We said, the city council said, don't go forward those improvements because it's good money after bad. That's what it was about.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilor Curtis. Councilor Schultz.
I just want to say, this is, I'm not exactly sure how to say this, but I feel that it's incredibly difficult while we're not voting on this today, and I am inclined to support, for example, keeping the golf course in the city, I think it's incredibly unfair, as people have a right to question any project, to judge any expense that looks large, especially when they're suffering right now. You know, a lot of people are suffering economically, and I don't think it's going to get any better. I think it's fair for us to ask these questions. I think unless we're ready to look at that same level of assessment every time we have a big expense, you know, where I could give a litany, I won't today, but I feel like, you know, it's a pretty hard pushback on something that really has been a challenge from a lot of people to us as counselors, and probably the mayor as well. I think that unless we're going to do that every time we have a big expense, it's incredibly unfair to say, compare these projects in that way to undermine the questions that are legitimate. I'm not saying that that's what you're doing, but it can feel that way by comparison. And I think we have to be fair with the fact that we have every right also to ask these questions and to, you know, because the public want them answered for no other reason. And I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Todd.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, gentlemen, for the presentation tonight. I just, following up on Councilor Schultz's comments, I think that I was surprised in reading the testimony that a lot of the public still seem to be confused about the options that we have. So start to think about, you know, what can people afford, and we've been all hearing a lot of comments about this. Can you please, and I know you probably described this before, what would be the options? Are there any options available to selling the golf course entirely?
I think if you want to sell the golf course entirely, the city has to deal with the Land Water Conservation Fund issues that encumber the entire property. And you would have to go out and, in compliance with their regulations, secure other property for recreation-related purposes, and whatever their terminology is, to offset what you would be giving up at Beaver Meadow. And that would free up the council to be able to do whatever they please with the property. But currently, it's under Land Water Conservation Fund easements, and basically the only thing that you can do at Beaver Meadow is recreation-related purposes, and in this case, it's a golf course.
Yeah, thank you. So what you're saying is basically, if we wanted to do something like this, we would need to petition the government, the federal government, to find 169 acres somewhere else, basically, that we would remain open. If we, for example, if we wanted to reuse this as, you know, as sell the land and have someone come in and build housing, which I know some residents have reached out to me with that suggestion. There's a problem with that because we would have to find 169 acres somewhere else. The federal government would have to sign off on that, and those 169 acres elsewhere would have to be open to recreational use. Is that a correct statement?
I would say that that's a correct thought. My guess would it would probably be much more than 169 acres that they would require us to find.
Right. Okay. One more slide. Thank you. What about similar scenario? What if we? What would be the options or the realistic options for leasing this golf course enterprise to another entity, or the challenges that you would see in that?
To like a private organization?
Yes.
You know, there have been golf courses that have been leased out to private companies that come in and run golf courses. I think probably the first challenge you would have is that anybody coming in would want to have a facility that would be presentable and very workable. So I think you'd be dealing with the building to begin with. You know, they would probably like the course because the course conditions are very good, but you'd be dealing with, you'd have to do something to the building in order to get a lease with any other company that would be interested in coming in. I have had a conversation with another manager whose city operates a golf course, or they lease their golf course out, and the lease on their golf course has been very problematic for many years, and the city has been subsidizing the lease for the company that comes in, so it's been a zero-sum game for them overall. So it's not without its own problems.
Thank you. Just one final question.
And now it's my turn to ask you an unfair question that you're not really prepared for, but I'm just whatever you can
Me
give
or
me is
Bill?
fine. Oh, I'm sorry, it's you,
Oh.
Mr. LeBrun, I'm sorry. Those two gentlemen are off the hook for the most
Oh, okay.
part.
That's I'm trying to push it off the.
If in fact we were to build a smaller scale facility, and some people have suggested just a very small building where you would have like some vending machines and just enough room for 1 or 2 staff members to facilitate people to, come in and take the money and, issue their times and so forth for playing. And we eliminated the golf pro, the other specialists that work on maintaining the fields, the greens, excuse me, the simulators, the restaurant, the bar. What kind of an overall impact do you think that facility would have? I mean, would you anticipate, I guess is my question, that over time that would actually end up being more costly to taxpayers because the general fund would have to subsidize that type of operation more than if in fact you had those kinds of amenities that were able to help defer that subsidy?
You weren't kidding. I mean, I think that the city council could direct us to do any number of things. I think that if you were to just put up a little, we'll call it a Santa's hut, and have somebody selling tickets for to go out and play a round of golf, the revenue generation would be very different. This year we're probably going to exceed about $2 million in revenue, or we're estimated to come probably pretty close to that. If you would have to have somebody that would be maintaining the fairways and greens and the landscape of the property. Otherwise, you're not going to have a viable property for people to play golf on. So, you have a couple of issues right there. You would certainly change the character of Beaver Meadow if you don't have a golf pro and staff, showing people, there's a lot of people that come to Beaver Meadow who are beginner golfers, who they've never played golf before, or they're just learning the game. They either take a lesson or groups of lessons, and they go out on the course and, they learn how to play at Beaver Meadow. You would have those people who wouldn't have anybody really to show them except maybe Uncle Joe, or maybe you or me on how to play golf. And I think those are the kind of things that change. It would definitely change the fabric of what Beaver Meadow is in the community here in the city of Concord. You would probably lose all of the revenue for a lot of the nonprofit organizations that have events at Beaver Meadow that raise funds for their charities. So, it would be very difficult without having somebody there to facilitate those kinds of things. I guess we could go on and on and on.
Thank you. Thank you.
Council Horn?
Maybe the city manager. You just explained very well the different funds for the arena and the golf and the airport, and the golf fund can pretty much handle its own operating expenses with its revenue fairly offset. Recent years, they've actually been plus 100,000 or more. But a lot of misinformation that we've all seen going around about the golf course. Can we just clarify that that's not making money when you are figuring in the general fund debts?
Sure. So there's, do you want to focus just on the golf piece?
Yeah, that's
So, for example, there is, there's debts, I'm going to make it real simple, there's, not because you can't understand, but make for everybody. There's really 2 types of debts. There's debts that are paid by the golf course, operating with the golf course revenues, and there's debts paid by the general fund. The debts paid by the general fund for the golf course really have been the irrigation system and maybe a piece of equipment here and there.
I don't recall we did a piece of equipment. I think we did a couple of other smaller
Other things.
improvements over the past
so the
7 or
piece,
8 years.
something specific. You come out with something specific and for example, the arena was the locker rooms. Thank you. But the other debt is, but then there's the general operating costs. There's the salaries, there's electricity, all the other things that go on with. There's the maintenance of the course. That's paid for with the revenues that come in from the users. But then there's still dollars left over, and the dollars left over are given to the general fund to cover other costs like handling the payroll for the people who work there, insurances for the people who work there. That's, I'm trying to remember how much is that.
It's about $125,000 in the golf fund this
That's
year.
true. That's true of all the special revenue funds. So they all contribute, and water and wastewater, right? They all contribute into the general fund to help offset those costs to keep the tax rate down. So, and then there is the general fund is paying the bond portion on the things that are raised by the general. So there's golf fund bonds, there's general fund bonds, there's operating costs, which are all paid for by the users of the golf course, and then there's a little bit of $125,000 a year that comes off to pay for operating costs for the general fund services, essentially, that's provided.
General overhead.
Yeah, so general. So for example, the golf course doesn't need to have its own HR person, so they pay a small portion of that, as does the arena, as does the airport, as does water and wastewater. That help?
It does. I just want to be clear.
Yeah.
Because people keep saying that the golf fund makes money, and as a person working in accounting, I'm just being clear that it
Yeah,
doesn't make money.
No, our goal is not to make money.
No, I know that.
Right, yeah,
I'm
right,
just
right.
trying to clear
No,
up
you're exactly right.
misinformation that, okay.
And so, and then what we have is, as I think Brian had pointed out, there's a fund balance, which we try to make sure that the city council has set goals of how much should stay in that fund balance. And we try to keep that number in that range. And then when they come to you, the city council, about what the rate should be, that helps determine what the rate should be if we need to do that. We've never approached it, just like council years ago looked at really upping the prices at the arena, recognized the fact that we could get people to come in at those prices, but you're going to exclude a lot of other people, particularly children, Concord children. So they said, oh, let's keep those rates down, and that was, you were able to do that. So, you know, so Concord folks could use it.
Thank you.
I want to try to wrap this up. Councilor Brown and then Councilor.
Yes, I'm sorry. Mr. City Manager, so you just mentioned, yes, we want to keep the rates low for Concord children. I feel that we're keeping the rates low, but we're also going for like a primo experience. You know, right, if you look at our Parks and Rec spring catalog, there are no golf offerings. There is nothing available for Concord kids at Beaver Meadow. There is for Bow kids, and there has been for the last 3 years. You know, we have very well-paid staff at Beaver Meadow, and I feel like if we want to keep the rates low, then, you know, we can't have, you know, the best facility, the highest paid golf pros, multiple golf pros. I feel that something has to give, and if it's, you know, we go back to a seasonal facility, not a four-season facility. We go back to the contracted pro. That could make it easier for us to maintain our balance.
I think you could. I mean, but it's a short term. If I could,
yes, it's
a short, because what happens is you decrease the quality, you also decrease the experience that people have, and people aren't willing to spend more, and they won't be willing to have their events there, and the events that we attract now would go to different locations, and we'd lose those money. So it's all a balancing act. The council did that for a while with actually the experience on the course, and said it's okay to have an average course, and we recognize the fact that what people aren't going to go and drop. I don't golf. What's a round of golf cost me on a Saturday morning if I will go on a Saturday, and what do I pay for?
$55.
Yeah, it's like
$55. But I'm
resident.
bringing my wife and my 2 children, so now it's $200, right?
But if you go in the afternoon, it's only $25 and $75.
Okay, so but I would be going at night when it's closed. So
that would be safer for most other people.
You used to do that, Steve?
Yeah.
But I think that's the
Not to play
thing.
golf, though.
That's the thing is you're gonna lose those folks who do that. I just don't see and we went that way. We said we cannot afford to have a good course, and it came back on us, and we lost people, and people left, and then we decided, why don't we have a good course? And I don't think you say that, and I know from your experience, you say that, you know, the golf pros well paid and the people there, they're not. They're not. Go check and see what the golf courses are paying these folks out there, and I think you'll find that the people that we have really good deals on. But
We love you, Phil.
yeah, I mean, Phil's doing us a favor by working here. We're doing him a favor by paying him good money, but he can make a lot more money someplace else.
Council Foot.
Quick question. The existing facility, is it compliant with the American Disabilities Act?
It is not.
Say that louder, please.
It is not.
Thank you.
Council Prenovic?
I'm all set, thank you.
All set. All right, gentlemen, thank you so much. Thank you for all your time, and thank you for the report. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
That moves us to items removed from consent. Item number 8. Madam City Clerk.
Listed as referral to the Parking Committee, the Traffic Operations Committee, and the Transportation Policy Advisory Committee. Number 8, communication from Councilor Brown requesting consideration be given to restricting parking to one side of the street on a section of School Street that is south of Liberty Street.
Councilor McNamara.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. We addressed this issue in June of 2020.
Oh, I'm sorry.
What?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Councilor McNamara, go ahead.
This came to the Parking Committee in 2023, I believe, and one person came and shared their concern about having parking, too much parking being used, and it was not something that we wanted, the committee agreed should be lessened to 2 hours. My biggest concern with sending this on to yet another committee is it's wasting time. This wastes our staff time. It wastes another committee's time, and we've spent 2 different meetings on this issue, and the last thing in June was we're going to be talking to the school board, talking to some of the school to find out what's going on in their end. So we've been waiting for that. And the last meeting we had a week ago, we had one family come, but there was nobody else in the community who came to talk about this issue either. So we've asked back in June that we'd like to have several community members come and talk about this issue of having parking gone down to 2 hours instead of all day long. So at this point, we just feel like it would be an arduous task to incorporate and use city staff time and to have another meeting where the parking committee has gone through this twice and does not feel at this point that we should be changing the metered parking.
You're making a motion, Councilor?
I would.
Hang on, asking Councilor McNamara.
Yes, I'm making a motion that we leave this as is with the parking committee's hands. The parking committee is going to continue to work to get the school to come and speak to this issue and not send it to any other committee to further.
All right, is there a second?
I'd second it.
All right. Councilor Brown.
Discussion. So, Councilor McNamara, I'm surprised that you're saying we, because I was on that committee as well, and it was pretty clear that this was going to the city council, and we were looking at the difficulty of getting everyone together, even getting the schools to come in and weigh in. So going to another committee in the meantime allows us to get additional information. We looked at the map of this location, and it's this one block that has cars parked on both sides. The plow truck could not get into driveways that they had a contract to plow because of it. So I think putting it off, leaving it just on parking, and there were multiple families that spoke to this. We only had one family at the parking committee because we had another agenda item that didn't show up, and they were here because this is something that has been bothering them, especially all winter. So I feel getting the information from traffic operations, possibly TPAC, because we are looking at safe roads, sidewalks, bump outs, would be more, getting more information makes it more helpful.
Councilor Fennessy.
Thank you. For those of you sitting around the table who don't remember, there was no parking allowed on this stretch between Liberty and Pine on School Street heading south. So there was originally no parking on this probably, I forget if it was 3 or 4 years ago. There was a request made that we had a property that was right next to Dewey School where they felt like they needed some additional parking. And so they requested that we change the parking requirements. It used to be just 2-hour parking. So essentially it would prohibit high school students from parking there. Our old mayor, not this one.
He is old, though.
He is.
Yeah. Suggested that we should do it for this resident. I believe, and I may be mistaken, that Councilor Brown and I both agreed that this was a bad idea. But nevertheless, it went through. I was not on parking at that point. So now we've made that we made that change as a council. That was the council's decision. We now have, and I drive down School Street every day. I live on School Street. I know exactly the issue that's been identified. I actually share Councilor Brown's concern about this issue. However, I think it's a parking issue. I think we should stay with parking. The parking committee may or may not agree with the concerns that have been raised, but I do think it's their job to make that determination. And then when they make a recommendation, us as a council can either accept or reject it. They made the recommendation, whatever it was, 3-4 years ago, that the parking should be changed, and the council accepted it, and so that's what we have. So although I share Councilor Brown's concerns about this particular issue, and I raised these concerns 3 or 4 years ago, I do believe that it should stay with parking, so I will support the motion and not the current recommendation.
Thank you. Councilor Sekou?
Thank you, Your Honor. My question is, as you said, it came 2 years ago to the council so that the council will look at it and resolve what the community is facing for needs. But it seems like it's 2 ways, right? People park both ways. At that time, I'm sure, because it goes to all the committees. Safety was an issue that, did you guys hear people that live there or resident complaining about having cars parked both areas, and especially in the winter, if that will be a concern, because it's both way streets, right? It's not a one-way street. And I think I worship at a place, Broad Street, and I will tell you, it's only one way, but during the winter, it's very hard to park both. We only park one way of the street, and during the winter, even that should not be there because it's just not safe. So for the safety concern here, do you think it makes sense to satisfy residents by having one of the side parking and then give people for the plow and for the safety another option?
I think the parking committee should look at that. I think when we looked at it the last time, there hadn't been parking on that block for I don't know how many years. So I don't think the people, honestly, I don't remember anybody really coming out and saying this is a bad idea, because nobody had been impacted by having parking on both sides of the street for many years.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Brown, then Councilor McNamara, then Councilor Todd.
So the person who actually came out and requested to have parking, and the staff said, if you do that, the high school is going to fill this up. And it's still, well, I wasn't on the council at that time, but that's exactly what happened. That same person has since said, I regret making that request, because it is so difficult for her tenants to exit. You know, I'm just looking at this. Yeah, it is a parking, but it is interwoven with traffic, with people accessing, you know, getting to work, getting to school, getting to the hospital. And I feel like if parking isn't meeting until June and TPAC meets almost every month, why, you know, what does it hurt to have it go to another committee to weigh in and look at it?
Thank you. Councilor McNamara.
Thank you, Your Honor. When things go to TPAC, it's usually because there's an issue with traffic problems, accidents, pedestrians. I am very fortunate for this neighborhood. They haven't had any accidents.
Close.
None. No accidents have happened, and I do appreciate for this family, they've had a lot of snow this year. We all know that. Do we always have snow? No. So at this point, I don't think TPAC's the place for it to go because there have not. They'll say, well, how many, what's the data? Show us the data accidents. Well, there haven't been any. So I think sticking and staying with parking is the place it should be.
Councilor Todd.
Thank you, Your Honor. As I have the great honor and privilege of chairing the parking committee.
How did that happen?
I don't know.
I do.
Some lottery that I lost. I just want to further some of Councilor McNamara's comments and confirm that at the parking committee meeting that we just had recently, we had Mr. and Mrs. Massini as residents who showed up to the parking committee meeting. We went through our agenda, and then when we got to other business, I invited them to come up and discuss the item already. So the fact that this is now being referred to parking committee is kind of a moot issue. It doesn't really need to be any longer. We didn't know at the time that was, you didn't certainly know, Councilor Brown, that was the way this was going to play out. But there is no really a need for a referral because we're already taking it up. And it's an ongoing issue. And Mr. Thompson, who is the city staff representative to the parking committee, stated at that meeting that he has tried on numerous occasions to contact the Concord School District, and he's had no luck. And the parking committee has made it a point to have a representative from the Concord School District there. Why? Because when we eliminate parking, as we know from this area, in one area, it flows to another area. And we want to look at a comprehensive view on the whole issue and get neighborhood impact generally. And that would include more than just the Massinis. We'd want to hear from other residents as well that shared those concerns and be able to open that up. But we want to do that in conjunction with the participation of the Concord School District in some fashion. So, Councilor Fennessy, rest assured, we will try to take up the issue and we will be looking at all the points that you made as well.
I trust you will.
Thank you. Are we ready for the question? Councilor Brown.
The question is to
The
keep it with parking.
The question is to not make the referral that is requested and to leave it with parking. So, as I was just about to specify or to clarify, if you vote yes or aye, then you are basically leaving this issue with parking and not making a referral to Traffic Policy Advisory Committee. If you feel it should go to Traffic Policy Advisory Committee, you vote no on this motion.
Can I just clarify that it will stay, if you vote no, it will stay with parking and it will also go to TPAC?
No, it will not go to TPAC. It will stay with parking because as parking has explained, they're working on this.
And my motion, I believe, was to stay at parking.
Correct, and not to refer it to TPAC. So if you vote aye, you're voting to leave it with parking and not forward it to TPAC, right? If you want to send it to TPAC as well as parking, then you vote yes.
No.
You vote no. I am so sorry. Then you vote no. Everybody was on yes. So send it to TPAC. Send it to yes. I'm sorry. Leave it with parking. Yes.
Parking and TPAC, no.
Parking and TPAC, no. All right.
TOC is also part of it.
So to,
And TOC, right.
I'm sorry, Your Honor.
oh,
Referral,
okay.
the referral is to TPAC and traffic ops. It removes it from parking.
Oh, I'm
No.
sorry. It removes it from parking. Thank you. All right. So.
Your
Doesn't
Honor,
it?
can
Why aren't we just voting on my motion
Yes.
first?
Let's
That's what we
let's
should be
vote.
doing.
We're going to vote on the motion.
No, you got me, I'm sorry, Your Honor. You
Have I
asked me to.
confused you?
It's just to clarify something. So
Yes.
if we let it how it is and it goes to parking, is it going to come back to us based on what the parking
Yeah,
recommendation?
the parking recommendation
Okay.
will come back to this.
Okay.
Right, correct. All right, are you ready for the motion? All in favor of the motion made by Councilor McNamara, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no?
no.
Ayes have it. Thank you very much. Next item removed from consent is item number 17, removed by Councilor Brown.
Yes.
Madam City Council, Madam City
Clerk.
City Clerk,
City
thank you.
Clerk.
It's late, the hour is late.
Report from the city manager regarding fiscal year 2025 event funding.
Thank you.
Uh,
Councilor Brown.
Yes,
So the Event Arts Program, Event Arts Grant Program is in its second year, and we have an excellent program review, requirements to apply for the grant, and the report stated that there were four recipients of the grant, and I think that the program outcomes are wonderful, and they're outlined, and I think that to recognize the city manager's great work on this, that it would be wonderful to have a hyperlink to the completed reports that do exist, that they do, that the recipients are required to do at the end. I think it would be great to have those reports hyperlinked on this website so that people can kind of look and say, yeah, we did a good thing. It was a super event. They met those outcomes, and it's a way to recognize the city manager's great work on this issue.
So can I clarify?
You may.
So a vote, no. So what you were asking, I'm going to try to say what you're asking, is that when the reports for because these are just 4 of what I anticipate to be hopefully 8 or 10 altogether, right? When the reports come in for these 4, that we take the reports for these 4, we put on that same page those reports that come in for those, and I could also do them, do a report so people want them. It's really just a because they're required to do that as part of this. So it'd be for these First Friday North Coffee Festival, the Book Festival, the Wagner's Women's Concert, and whatever else comes along. Then I just take those reports. Now those reports won't be in for a while, though, right?
Of course.
Right, and then I'll just include them into this website, and then does that work for everybody?
Yes.
I mean, that way, because when the council and I talked about this, there is the point about. So if you decide to do this again, people can kind of see examples of projects that have been done and what the results were, and see whether or not, hey, is this something that they'd be interested in. So it's easy enough to do. But I don't have those reports yet.
Of course,
Okay,
I
okay, that's fine.
my hope is that but not just these, but for all of them.
They come in.
As they come in, as they're completed, people can look back and be like, wow, how wonderful has that been?
So I'll make sure when these come in, as they come in, because they're all scattered throughout the year, I'll just include them on the website, the report.
Councilor Secretary?
It's just to second what you just said, because it will help other organizations that are interested to see the impact it's making in the community. And by reading the report, not only for the council, if it's available for anybody else to read, they know the decision that you guys are making, because it's in your hands at the city level, not at the council level. So thank you. You made it easy.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion that when the reports come in from recipients of the grant program.
Councilor, I think you can just make a motion that we accept the report. You guys have communicated.
Oh, okay, I don't
Okay,
need to do
agreed.
that. Okay, then I make a motion that we accept the report.
Thank you.
Second.
For the second, any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. We now come to comments from, do you have any comments?
To share here?
To share here?
No, I got plenty of comments.
I'm reading without my glasses, so it's first from us.
It's
on the
you,
city
then
council.
me.
We'll start with Councilor
I get a rebuttal.
Councilor
So-
Foote, do you have any comments?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. I just want to wish all those that celebrate have a blessed Lent, and those who also celebrate Ramadan the same. So, thank you. A couple of things. Had a nice discussion with the assistant city manager relative to impact fees, and I just want to make sure I keep bringing that to everyone's attention. I thought we had a nice, robust discussion, and hopefully he'll be bringing his report soon to the city council. So I thank him and the city mayor for that effort. One of the things we're going to talk about, I think it's going to go around, is Earth Day. And one of the things that I'm working on is to have a cleanup program from 393 down to exit 13, essentially along the corridor of the railroad tracks. I drive that twice a day, and the trash and graffiti is it's overwhelming. And when the snow leaves us, it's probably going to be more undesirable to look at. So I'm in the process now of setting up accrue, and if anybody would like to participate, it'll be April 19th at 8:30 to 10 a.m. It won't be an all-day event. The Rowley Agency, Gary Stevens and Rob Simpson, have donated their parking lot to stage, and they also, Rowley Agency donated $1,000 towards the effort. So I'm trying to make this private and keep the city out of it as much as we can. But I think it's one of the things that was the original intent of Earth Day, is to pick up trash. And I know it seems rudimentary, but so am I. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Schultz.
Thank you, Your Honor, Mr. Mayor. I just want to take a moment to say, at a time when public service is being questioned, not in Concord, the folks in Concord, I think we will agree, are very welcoming of public service, especially on the passing of our firefighter, Gerard. I think that any service to this city is well regarded and respected, but very much so for firefighter Gerard, his family, all who know and love him, and the firefighters in general, that we take a moment to recognize that again. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Secretary.
I second just what you said. I think it's very hard and sad to see what happened for the loss of CJ, and I think this is a great time to recognize all of them hard work and what they have been doing in the community. So my condolences to him, to the family, and to our city. Thank you. Food, I wanted to mention about Ramadan. It's been 10 days since we have been in Ramadan, and that's why I left earlier, so that I can go break the fast and come back. So just, we have a big event coming on the 21st of this month. So stay tuned. The other things I want to say is really to take the opportunity here today to say thank you, Your Honor. On the last snow we had, some of my residents has been asking me why always their streets are the last to be plowed and what to do. And with your help, it was possible to get done. And I get a beautiful note from one of the residents to say thank you for what the city does, but of course to their councilor, because it was not easy to see, and we know it was one of the tough snow day that we had throughout the year. So thank to the general services, and thank you to your honor for the guidance during that time.
My pleasure. Councilor Schlosser.
Thank you. So on Tuesday, March 18th, there'll be a ward resident meeting at the West Street Ward House that I'll be hosting. So that went out in my newsletter yesterday. Picking up Councilor Foot's notion of garbage pickup, Andy Duncan and Laurel Horn, two Ward 7 residents, are organizing a garbage pickup along Bow Brook on Earth Day, April 22nd. So maybe, and there may be other activities around the city, but I just acknowledge the great work. That's a great idea. So we'll be doing a little bit of work in the 7th, in the Ward 7 for that also. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Fennessy.
Happy early St. Patrick's Day to everybody. And I wanted to just say congratulations to the Barley House. They've been celebrating their 25th anniversary. I know the mayor was down there on Saturday at a nice dinner with my children and some friends on Saturday night, and had some great activities going on. It's good to see a business very busy on a Saturday night here, which when I first moved to Concord, Saturday night at 7 o'clock, you could have a seat anywhere you wanted. So.
Councilor Keith.
Thank you. Just a suggestion, Councilor Slusher, and I'm sure your homeless committee has considered this, but I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned in communities such as Manchester and other places as to what works and what doesn't work. And just a suggestion that there's no need to reinvent the wheel, but there's been some successes in Manchester, but there's also been some things that have not worked. So I think it would be helpful to pay attention to those.
Thank you. That's great advice.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Grady Sexton.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just wanted to remind the community that the Parks and Rec schedule has come out for summer camps. They they fill up very quickly because they are wonderful for kids of all ages, so make sure to check out that catalog.
Excellent. I'll piggyback on that by reminding folks that there are scholarships available for summer camp. So if you are interested but think that you might not be able to afford it, I encourage you to apply and contact Parks and Rec about scholarship opportunities. I also want to shout out Parks and Rec. I can't remember exactly, but I think we had something like 34 skating days on the city, at the city's ponds this year, and obviously Mother Nature had a great deal to do with that. I'm grateful for that, but also we know Parks and Rec worked very hard to flood those, maintain those, keep them safe, keep the signage appropriate, and now that skating season has come to an end, I just wanted to give a shout out to those efforts.
Councilor Brown.
Yes, I have two things. Lifeguards are the heroes of summer, and the job openings are, you can go to the city website for job opportunities as a lifeguard, a splash pad attendant. I constantly hear from families how wonderful, how grateful, how appreciative they are that we have these pools. I think that makes our community so much better and stronger because people are not jumping into the river. And I believe that we may still have free swim lessons that were provided through a scholarship. Was that New Hampshire Housing?
Concord Housing Redevelopment.
Housing redevelopment, yes. So fantastic, but it would not be possible without our lifeguards. I also want to draw folks' attention to March 15th. The Women's Club is doing a St. Patty's Day fundraiser party to raise they hope to raise about $6,000 for a scholarship for high schoolers going on to whatever their whatever higher education they want. So 44 Pleasant Street, the Chamberlain House, there'll be music, a live auction, a silent auction, 5 to 7.
Which day?
It is the
March
15th.
Saturday.
Councilor
Tomorrow there'll be a meeting here put on by the city to deal with streets, Washington Street safety issues at 7 o'clock. I think that's really important if you're concerned about safety, streets, and pedestrians. I also want to share something. There's been a lot going on, and I've had a lot on my mind lately. And I just want to share that I feel privileged and humbled to serve as a city council, which allows me to engage with staff. I have a deeper understanding of city operations. And when I speak of privilege, for me, it should always serve the public's best interest. Unfortunately, when privilege is misused, it undermines the foundation of good governance. I'm disheartened to witness this privilege being used not for the sake of clarity or to serve our residents best, but to target colleagues, city staff, and especially dedicated volunteers who contribute their time to our community. When questions are asked not out of genuine concern, but for personal gain to create division or mislead, trust can be eroded. Civic participation is discouraged at that point, and the distraction breaks the workflow and can hurt morale. Transparency means being open and honest. It has been made clear to all of us that counselors are not to be issuing directions to staff, boards, or misusing staff time and resources to create the illusion of oversight for personal gains. When we have concerns, we ask questions of our city manager or our heads of departments. I am reminded that we must stay focused on the real problems, safety issues, and not fall into or create manufactured crises for political gains. Continue to ask, what is my purpose and my goal for this community, and kindness and true compassion goes a long way. We are elected to serve our community with integrity, and I find that to be a privilege. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Insomniacs in the community are going to love another celestial event coming this Friday about 2:30 in the morning in the overnight hours. You can enjoy a full lunar eclipse. Clouds prohibited.
Councilor Horn.
April 10th, there will be a public input information session on the Tanner Street Riverfront Park, which is the one across from Chiefs on the opposite side of the street. It is 6 p.m. at Pennacook Elementary School. So if you would like to have your vision heard about that park, please come to that meeting.
Thank you, Your Honor. Yes, and following up on that, another park, Rolfe Park, tomorrow night at 6 p.m. The city is sponsoring a meeting at Merrimack Valley High School Auditorium, which is 106 Village Street in Pennacook. Councilor Horn and myself will be there. We will be discussing with city staff a chance for residents actually to discuss issues about Rolfe Park safety, and also discuss vehicular traffic issues, volumes and speeds on High Street, Community Drive, and the other streets in the general area surrounding the park. A representative from Parks and Rec will be there, and I understand also from Concord Police. So this will be a great opportunity for the community to air their concerns and get some answers to questions. I hope to see everybody there tomorrow night, 6 o'clock at Merrimack Valley High School Auditorium. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Well, I am in a conundrum because both the meeting on Green Street and Center Street and the meeting on Rolfe Park are on the same night, which makes it very difficult for them. I'm reminded of when I was in college, Firesign Theater had an album and they had a song about how can you be at two places at once when you're not anywhere at all, and that's the way I feel about this. So I'm going to have to make a decision on where to show up tomorrow night. I will say thank you, Councilor Fennessy, for mentioning the 25th anniversary of the Barley House. I attend a lot of ribbon cuttings. It is a pleasure to attend a 25th anniversary celebration for a business here in town, and particularly one that's become such a mainstay of Main Street and the nightlife and the civic life of our community. So I was very pleased to be asked by Brian Shea and Deb Shea to participate, and I did a pretty good job of cutting the cake, and it was pretty good cake too.
All about the cake.
It's all about the cake. Thank you, Councilor. I have been asked by Councilor Brown to remind you that the Concord Public Library is holding its Concord Read event again this year. The title that they are reading is this one, Where You'll Find Me, subtitled Risk, Decisions, and the Last Climb of Kate Mostrova.
That's a genre I would
Fatality
totally
in
read.
the White Mountains. And something that is topical because this time of year we're hearing about people at risk in the White Mountains quite a bit. There will be a number of activities. If you go to the library, I'm sure you can pick up one of these bookmarks, which has the full schedule on the back. It kicks off on April 5th at 10 and 11 a.m. at the Army Aviation Support Facility, which I assume is up on the Heights, with a tour of a Black Hawk helicopter, which sounds very cool. And there are a variety of other activities going right through till April 24th. And there is a children's program, I Survived, trivia and survival kits on April 12th at 10 in the Concord Public Library Auditorium. So, Concord Reads, highly recommended. Read a book, and read a real book, like one of these.
All those events are free
All those events are free.
and open to the public.
There you go. Do I have a motion?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by
Aye.
saying
Aye.
aye. Opposed?
Correspondence, this and the